Welcome to the Real World. My name is Cameron. Today on episode 68 of the Real World podcast, we're talking all about our favorite Netflix movies. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Let's kick things off as we usually do with some movie news. New release dates have been given for several films due to the actors' strike still ongoing. Paddington in Peru, the third Paddington movie, is now slated for January 17th, 2025. Mission Impossible 8, originally titled Dead Reckoning Part 2, will get a new title and will be pushed back an entire year to May 23rd, 2025. Also, A Quiet Place Day 1 was bumped to several months back to June 28th, 2024. So all these new release dates have been given by the studios because the writer's strike is over, but the actors' strike is still going on. A new Looney Tunes movie is in development. It is the first ever fully animated, theatrically released Looney Tunes movie of all time. It is called The Day the Earth Blew Up. There's no release date yet, but very much looking forward to another Looney Tunes adventure. This one fully animated. Sounds like it's going to be kind of a sci-fi spoof, perhaps, so very interested in what this movie is going to be. The first image from Disney's Snow White live-action remake was released online. The film was just pushed back an entire year to 2025, so I'm confused as to why they released this image. I guess they still want to generate interest, perhaps. Although the image doesn't generate much interest in me, kind of over a lot of these live-action remakes, doesn't seem like they're doing anything interesting with them. There have been a few that I've enjoyed, but most of them I have not, so not really very interested in this one. What I am interested in is the Daily Wire creating their own Snow White film, which is going to be kind of competing with the Disney version. So it's one of these situations where we have kind of twin films going on, two films about the same subject releasing around the same time. Very curious to see which one comes out on top. Gran Turismo set a 4K release date. It is coming to the format on November 7th. So coming up very soon, we will be able to watch Gran Turismo from the comfort of our own homes. Of course, this is based on the video game. It did pretty well at the box office this summer. I still have not been able to see it yet, but I've heard good things, so I definitely want to check it out. Celebrating its 30th anniversary is Rudy. I had to mention this movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It's one of the best sport movies of all time. Very inspirational, true story. It's definitely worth watching. Sean Astin does some of his best work as an actor in this film. So definitely check it out if you haven't. It's on Blu-ray now. This Blu-ray edition is really good. It sounds and looks great. Also has several bonus features on it about the real person who inspired the film. So definitely check out Rudy if you haven't had a chance. All right, folks, well, that's it for movie news. Now it's time to jump into our main topic of the day, and that is Netflix. Netflix, of course, has become one of the biggest names in movies over the past several years, although they haven't really been around that long. So we're going to discuss this. Joining me on this episode is my special guest, Josh. How you doing, man?
Doing well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us again. Always happy to have you. All right, so let's kick off our conversation about Netflix. This company founded way back in 96. So 1996 is when they officially launched. Two guys, Mark Randolph and Reed Hastings, launched the company officially in 1997. And, they basically started off as a kind of home video DVD rental service that was all via the mail. So you would get sent DVDs in mail. Some people may remember that. I certainly remember getting those in the mail, and you got to send it back on a certain day and that whole kind of thing. So it was kind of like Blockbuster, but via the mail service. And so it was pretty interesting. They kicked off with that really till about 2006. That's when they began developing the streaming service that we now know as Netflix, that pretty much everyone I know has it in their home. So they started the streaming online, streaming movies in 2007. And so it's pretty incredible what they were able to do from 2007 all the way until about 2013 is when they started really producing their own original films. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of became a distributor and production company themselves. So pretty interesting, their history, the things that they've developed over the years that or just have totally changed the industry. I mean, really, they're the first ones out of the gate to try this whole online streaming idea of movies right to your TV. It's kind of amazing to think that, now that's what everyone does. It's how most people now watch their movies, is streaming them online. So it really was a game changer for the film industry, for the movie rental industry. Obviously, that's over. Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, all these places have totally shut down because they just couldn't keep up with online streaming. So it's kind of an interesting thing to look back on and kind of have seen this happen over the past couple decades. It hasn't taken that long for it to really change the industry completely. So very interesting. We're of course doing the podcast on Netflix today because they have a new film out called Pain Hustlers, which kind of hits close to home. It all takes place in Florida. It's based on a true story of things that happened just a few years back with the pharmaceutical industry. It stars Chris Evans and Emily Blunt. They're both fantastic in it. I didn't particularly care for the movie that much. It was kind of interesting as a kind of, based on a true story thing. I just wasn't super engaged throughout it. I do like David Yates, though, as a director. He's directed a lot of Harry Potter films. I think 6 of them or 7 of them at this point. But I like that he's branching out a little bit, with this. And he did The Legend of Tarzan a couple years ago, another live action film, which I enjoyed. So I'm curious to see what he does next, but this wasn't one of his best. So, but another film that's coming out soon, I'm very excited about, is David Fincher's The Killer, starring Michael Fassbender. It's being shown in select theaters around the country now. It's getting very positive reviews. And so that one hits Netflix on November the 10th. So looking forward to that. Looking back, I mean, this year they've released so many movies. Every year it seems like they just grow their catalog of films that they're releasing. And they do that in various different ways. Like I said, they've started their own production company, so they are producing their own films now, but they also distribute a lot of independent films. So they go to the festivals and they find movies that people have made that they're looking for a distributor. And they've picked up several of those as well that they've released. Sometimes they'll do a limited theatrical run, and then it'll come straight to Netflix. So a lot of their movies aren't actually produced by them. They're produced by other people, and they're kind of releasing them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about all these movies that Netflix has released over the years. We're going to talk about our top 5 favorites. We, of course, have some honorable mentions. But Netflix, look, like I said, they've changed the game. And I like Netflix because they really attract some visionary filmmakers over the years. I think it's because they're willing to give them fairly large budgets and really just let them run with their vision. They're not one of these studios that you hear about, they're interfering all the time with the director's vision and re-editing the movie and, doing all these different things. They typically just let the artists go and do their thing. And I think that's why they've attracted the likes of Alfonso Cuarón, as we mentioned, David Fincher, Guillermo del Toro, Zack Snyder, Martin Scorsese. So huge names out there that have come over to Netflix and produced films for them. I think it's because of the creative freedom they're allowed to have. So I think I'm ready to dive in. Josh, do you have anything you want to add before we jump into our top 5?
Not really. I mean, we were Blockbuster, so we didn't do the whole Netflix mailing thing. It was, I don't know, it was just faster to go get it than to wait for the mail. Sure. But obviously, once the streaming starts taking over, and Blockbuster didn't change, so they died. Sadly, it's an institution. Obviously, everyone's on Netflix now. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, it's time to jump into our honorable mention. So I've got several. I've got quite a list here. I'm gonna run through them, most of them pretty quickly. There's only a few that I have like some comments on, but let me kick us off with first of all, actually, I have a mini list of ones to watch during Halloween, because obviously this week is Halloween. All the horror movies are huge right now. So I have a list of some ones that are good to watch this week if you're looking for some horror. First one I'll start with is a really small, intimate film, very low budget. It's called The Wasteland. It all takes place in one location. It's really, really good, kind of tense thriller. So definitely recommend The Wasteland. I think it's made in Mexico. It's a Mexican film, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, cool.
Another one, kind of if you're looking for more of a dark comedy, Windfall I found to be really entertaining. Has Jason Segel in it, and really enjoyed that one. One I just got to watch this week is called Cargo, starring Martin Freeman. Sort of a post-apocalyptic zombie dystopian type film, survival movie. Definitely worth a watch. Another one I like, kind of if you're into kind of like body horror stuff, there's one called Mute, which Duncan Jones directed. He's one of my favorite directors. He did Moon. He did Warcraft, the World of Warcraft movie. This takes place in the same universe as Moon. So there's actually a brief reference to Sam Rockwell's character in Moon in Mute. And so it's kind of a fascinating film. The lead character doesn't talk at all. That's why it's called Mute. So there's that one. There's Bright, which I find to be a kind of a fun modern fantasy film. It's really interesting. If you're looking for murder mystery, you can't go wrong with Glass Onion. Of course, Rian Johnson's sequel to Knives Out. Zombies, if you're into zombies, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead is one of my favorite zombie movies ever made. Really like how he shot that one. And then a couple that people probably aren't as familiar with, Blood Red Sky. This came out just about a year or two. Have you seen this? Oh, okay. Yeah.
On really your recommendation.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. Yeah. I really like that movie. It's really kind of unexpected. If you don't know the twist, don't look up anything about it. Just go in blind. It's really fun. It's a really fun movie. Very unique. All takes place on an airplane. Very, very good. So I like that one. And then a recent one. This one just came out this year. It's called The Pale Blue Eye. This stars Christian Bale. It's kind of a period mystery film. And Edgar Allan Poe is one of the characters in the story. It's not based on his life or anything, but he's involved in the story in a unique way. So definitely recommend The Pale Blue Eye. I was really impressed by it when I watched it this week. It's definitely one that you should check out. So I'll start off with that list. Those are my kind of Halloween picks. And then I've got several others. But Josh, why don't you go ahead and give us, several of your honorable mentions here?
Okay. Yeah, as far as Halloween-y ones, I think the only two I had on there, one of you mentioned was Blood Red Sky. I don't know if you could say Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is Halloween-y. I mean, it's got some spooky parts to it.
Sure.
So maybe that one. But Day Shift is one I had pretty high up there. That one was close to making it. Then it's not like, oh my gosh, it's the best movie ever, but like it's a really fun movie, and Dave Franco just hits it out of the park with his like his character. It's really great.
Yeah, that one was
it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Also Glass Onion, like you mentioned, both Extraction films. Extraction 2 is very close to making it for me.
I did like the sequel better.
Yes. I think that, oh my gosh, just everything from the first movie, but better.
Right. Exactly.
Maybe not the story, but the rest of it.
Right.
Fantastic.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. I also had, moving out of Halloween, I have All Quiet on the Western Front, The Irishman, White Noise, Heart of Stone. I saw a lot of people kind of beating up on that, but I actually liked that movie. I thought it was a good spy film, espionage film.
I still need to see that.
Persuasion. I don't think it's the best of like the period dramas, but I like the angle in the comedy, the fourth wall breaking aspect to it. That was pretty good. To All the Boys I've Ever Loved Before. Hillbilly Elegy is a really somber one, but that one's really good.
Yeah,
really
I was going to mention that. That's Ron Howard.
Yes,
he did a great job with it. Amy Adams, Glenn Close, their acting in it is fantastic. I think
Glenn Close got nominated, but Amy Adams should have too. That was very underrated film. Actually, another one that was underrated was I thought anyway was Mowgli: Legend of the Jungle. It's the non-Disney live action Jungle Book that came out like a year after that one.
Yeah, and it was directed by Andy Serkis.
Yes.
That's a great film.
Yeah, I like it because it was a unique story. It wasn't just like, here's the same movie but live action. Yes. And they decided to do a little bit to change the animals' faces so it wasn't as like realistic. There was more emotion. They could emote better. Yes. And I think that even though it wasn't as realistic or whatever, I think that really played in their favor.
I agree completely. Yeah, that's a great movie. I think it's the best adaptation of that story for sure.
Now, granted, I've only seen 3 adaptations of that story. I know there's another live action one from like the 90s, but I haven't seen that one yet.
Right.
I think that was also Disney though.
It was.
Yeah, but I have a couple other, but I'll swing it back to you.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I've got one called Wheelman that kind of flew under the radar. I feel like a couple years back. Frank Grillo plays the lead character, and the whole thing takes place in and around a car. So the
Oh,
camera is
really?
usually actually attached to the car or inside the car in some way.
That's a
Um,
cool concept.
it is. It's really cool. It's a really good movie. It's a good action film. Definitely worth checking out. Richard Linklater's semi-autobiographical film, Apollo 10 and a Half, A Space Age Childhood. That one's a lot of fun, narrated by Jack Black. Very unique looking movie.
I didn't know that was autobiographical
Yeah,
or
it's
semi.
loosely based on his childhood, his when he was growing up.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Spike Lee's The Five Bloods, Vietnam War film. Chadwick Boseman's in there. It's excellent. Definitely recommend that one. Eurovision. I have tons of fun with this comedy. This is it's one of my favorite comedies in recent years. Will Ferrell, I think, was great in it. Rachel McAdams was also
Yes.
fantastic in this. So yeah, that's one that I've watched a couple times actually.
Yeah,
Really
that
like
one's a
that.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
I still have a couple of those songs like
Yes.
on a playlist.
Yeah, there's some good music in there. Yeah, for sure.
Really a wacky fun movie.
Definitely. Going over to Westerns, I'm a huge Western guy. The Harder They
Mhm.
Fall, I found to be a really
Yes.
highly entertaining Western. A lot of good action in there. A great cast again. Moving over to some animation, Vivo, I think is great. Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the music for this and
Mm.
voices the main character. Our family has enjoyed this one probably more than any of their other animated movies, honestly. It's just
Oh,
very
wow.
fun to watch, high energy, again, great music, which you don't expect anything less from Lin-Manuel.
Of course.
But yeah, really fun movie. Another good animated one is The Sea Beast. Have a lot of fun with The Sea Beast.
Yes.
That's a good one too. I'll just mention
And
a
that
couple
was
more.
their own, sorry,
Yeah,
that was Netflix's own animation department. I
that's
think, I
right.
don't know how many they've made, but at least that one, I didn't even know they had an animation department until I was researching for this. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool.
Right. Yeah. No, they haven't had an animation department, I don't think, for very long. And yeah, that one was definitely a good one. Last one I'll mention for now is Hustle. Hustle with
Mm,
Adam Sandler. I think that's a really good
I've heard
movie,
that's
one of
good.
his better ones recently. He's like a basketball talent scout, and it's a lot about his
Mm.
relationship with this young guy and them kind of on the road together. It's very good, very good drama. Some good humor in there too. Definitely worth watching. So give me a few more yours, Josh.
Roma, which that
Still
one,
need
I
to
need to
see
watch that
Roma.
one again.
Yeah, I've
The
heard it's great, but it's like a one watch.
Yeah, I watched the first time. I was like, okay, it was fine. But
Yeah.
then I watched a little bit later. I watched the behind the scenes special that's on there
Mm.
too, which I think is also in the Criterion edition. And
Oh,
it just like my respect for the film and Alfonso. I can't say I can't pronounce his last name
Quran, yeah.
off the top of my head. Yeah, I would have butchered it. I was going to say something else. He did like it. Just my respect for his filmmaking just went up on top of what it already was for Children of Men.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And the
yeah, so
best
I
Harry Potter
definitely
movie, Prisoner of Azkaban.
yes that I've seen. I've seen 5 of them.
Oh, I gotcha.
Well, 5 of the originals. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is a very unique film,
Yeah,
multi-story
that was
film
what I was
all
about
in
to
one.
mention. Yeah. Coen Brothers, great stuff. Anthology
Yes.
film, it's all kinds of different stories together.
Hmm.
Really like that.
Yeah, that one was good. Let's see. Space Sweepers is a underrated one that I knew you really like as well. And you're not saying anything, so maybe that's in your top 5.
Maybe not giving anything away, but maybe.
All right. Let's see. The only other one, Red Notice. That was the only other one I had to mention. That one is pretty fun. It's a nice adventure film that like uses the tropes of like an adventure spy film, but like in a fun, like sort of meta way.
A couple others I have to mention. Kate with Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Mm.
Excellent action movie. Highly recommend that one. One I just watched this week from the director of one of my favorite zombie movie, Train to Busan. He directed a movie about AI called Jung-E, and it is
I wanted to
really,
watch
really
that.
good. Definitely worth checking out. Had to mention The Outlaw King with Chris Pine. It's
Mm.
kind of a sequel to Braveheart. So it kind of continues
Oh,
the story
really?
of Robert the Bruce. Yeah. It's all in medieval Scotland, that time era.
Oh, wow.
Triple Frontier, I found to be a great heist
Mm.
movie. Great cast. Oscar Isaac, Pedro Pascal, Ben Affleck, all do a great job in that film. The Power of the Dog just came out, I think, last year as a Western.
Oh yeah.
Jane Campion with Benedict Cumberbatch and Cody Smith-McPhee, Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons are all in that. They all do a great job.
Big cast.
Yeah, great cast. One of their earliest films, I think it actually might have been the first film they produced or distributed, Beasts of No Nation, with Idris Elba. That is a film about child soldiers in Africa, and it is a great movie. Very, very well made. Hard to watch at times, but definitely worth watching. The King with Timothée Chalamet, I think that is just a great movie. Henry V. He does a great job in it, and David McCode, who directed it, did a great job. Really unique medieval warfare. It's very realistic. It's not like, they're clanging swords. It's like huge just bodies on top of bodies, like just swinging swords around, and like it's crazy. What the way they filmed it is just it was unlike anything I'd seen before.
Definitely a unique film.
Yeah, for sure. And then Gunpowder Milkshake. I find this to be a really fun action movie. Kieran Gillen, who I'm a big fan of, does a great job in that. And so I had to mention that one. And then my last three, these all were considered for the top five. So the first one is David Fincher's Mank. Big fan of Mank. It's a true story about the writing and making of Citizen Kane. And so Gary Oldman stars, and as usual, he just knocks it out of the park with his performance. It's absolutely stellar. Amanda Seyfried's in there. She does a great job. It's all shot in black and white, which I'm a huge fan of. So right up my alley. It's like about film history, and it's shot in black and white, and it's got all these great actors. So that one I'm a big fan of. Didn't quite make it in the top five though. And then one that my family has watched, the other one that my family has watched the most is a film produced by Cartoon Saloon, but released by Netflix. It's called My Father's Dragon. And that was based on a book. Again, wonderful voice cast, great. Cartoon Saloon's known for their hand-drawn 2D animation, which we don't get enough of these days. And they just did an excellent job with that film. Really enjoyed it. And then this one I just watched last night for the first time. It's a film directed by and starring George Clooney. It's called The Midnight Sky. This is a sci-fi movie that he made a couple years back, and I was just riveted the whole time. It's great.
Oh, really?
It's got two parallel storylines going on, one in outer space and one on Earth, and it's just really impactful. Has a great ending. Felicity Jones is in there as well. Kyle Chandler, David Oyelowo. Excellent casting, and really well done film. Well shot, well edited. Very good special effects too. I was kind of shocked by how good it all looked. So definitely check those out. Was that all from your honorable mentions?
Well, I forgot about Gunpowder Milkshake and The King that you mentioned. I guess the only one that I have on here, actually, there is one more technically. It would be in my top five, but we already discussed it at length during our Twin Films podcast. So Marriage Story. If you want to hear us talk about that, go check out the Twin Films podcast, which I was going to write down the number for, but I did not.
That's okay. They'll be able to just
episode
search
number
and find it. Yeah, Twin Films. That was a fun podcast. And we talked extensively about Marriage Story.
And I'm sorry, one more.
Go ahead.
The Christmas Chronicles. With,
okay, sure. Yeah, those are fun.
Yes. Yeah. Especially the first one. Just that jailhouse scene with they're jamming out. That was with Kurt Russell. That was just we were dying laughing during that scene. It was so good.
Yeah, he's great in that. He's quoted as saying he wants his last film to be a Christmas Chronicles film. So the last role he plays is Santa Claus.
Just so the last role he plays is Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know. I thought that was funny.
I feel like they either need to not make one for a while,
right?
Or like it'll be like Christmas Chronicles 7 when he's done.
Exactly. Right. Great. Okay, great. Well, that's our honorable mentions. There's a lot there. Again, Netflix has produced so many films over the years, even though they haven't been doing it that long. We had a lot of honorable mentions there. So hopefully you enjoy some of those if you choose to watch them. But now we're going to talk about our top five, our absolute favorite Netflix movies. Do you want to kick us off, or do you want me to?
I can. Yeah, I can go first.
Okay, Josh, go ahead with your number five.
Well, first off, Netflix has like the most of these like original films that like because I have a few lists like for each of the streaming services that have original movies. Netflix definitely has the most films that I've put in their list of like these are worth watching. These are good. and maybe because they've been around a lot, but they do produce a lot, like you said. But
Sure.
also, I feel like this top five has been like the hardest to choose, to figure out, and not to nail down. It's been the hardest to nail down
Right.
out of all the other podcasts that we've done.
Right. I kind of
Even
agree. And I think it's because we usually pick a genre or like a franchise or an actor, whereas now we're picking a studio. And even though, like you said,
yeah,
they haven't been around that long, they've produced so many movies, so many different kinds of movies
that's true.
that it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, no, I mean, even up till like an hour ago, I was still adjusting. Actually, up until like right before we started this, I threw the fifth one in here. I
Right.
traded it out. It was in the top 10 and now moved to 5 because I was like, you know
Yeah.
what, it's going in there.
Same for me. Same for me.
Yeah, this whole week it's just been fluid. The whole top 10 has been like rearranging itself.
Right.
So for number 5, I nailed down The Harder They Fall.
Oh, great. Okay. Excellent.
Yes.
Cool.
And I don't know. I just keep coming back to this movie. I think I've seen it like 3 different times now. I know that's not a ton of times,
Right.
but it only came out a couple of years ago.
Right.
I don't know, just something about it is really, I really like. It's really engaging and brings me back to it. Jonathan Majors, like I've seen him maybe like in a couple things here and there, but this movie really made him stand out to me. Like,
Yeah.
like he's a good actor.
Right.
So I really like it. Just the whole vibe. And I mean, you gotta like, as soon as the movie ends, you know, I forget the director's name, but you see his name, and then like for the next like 5 to 10 different credits that pop up, his name is in there.
Right.
Like he like co-produced it, he directed it, co-wrote it. Like I think he was involved in the soundtrack, like or the score. He did all these different things, and at the very least, that has to garner some respect for the amount of different things he was involved in, that he had a hand in making for this movie.
Yeah.
But it's just like a super fun Western. And I mean, gunslingers are like probably the most fun things about Westerns, which is why those characters stand out. And so, you know, you have like, that's like the whole movie here. they're all gunslingers in their own way. And it's just a really fun movie to watch. And this, not only the soundtrack, but the score, or I should say both are really unique, and they're really cool. Like some of the, like all those songs are bangers, pretty much. And even right from the beginning of the film, the story I really like too, because right from the beginning of the film, you're just like, you're like, okay, this was like super intense. Yeah. And I don't know, I just really like it as a Western. It's probably one of my favorite Westerns. If I had to say, at least top 10, if not top 5.
Great. Yeah, it's a great pick. I had to mention it earlier because it is one of my favorites as well. His name's James Samuel, who directed this. Yes. And he also did the music. So I think he has a music background, if I'm not mistaken. And it's such a unique Western because it's set in the era, you know, all the costumes and sets are very period accurate, yet the music is totally modern. So it's like very kind of jarring, I think, for a lot of people who are used to like traditional Westerns. But I think the Western, you know, it's kind of gone the way of the dodo. And now I think we need to kind of, if we're going to keep the genre like that around, we need to have fresh voices like this come in and shake things up and do things that are unique. So I'm all about it. I was a huge fan of this, very stylish, you know, the way they shoot the action. The music adds a lot. It's got an ensemble cast, all of whom are playing real life characters who didn't necessarily meet one another. So it's kind of like a fictional story around real people. And that's so cool. I'm a big fan of this movie as well. Lakeith Stanfield's one of my favorites. And he does a great job in this too. So yeah, excellent choice.
And he was just in Haunted Mansion, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah, he was the lead.
Okay, I was like, wait, I recognize the name. Yeah, he's been I've seen him popping up all over the place.
Yeah,
he's really up and coming right now.
Definitely. Hopefully he gets more big roles because he's a fantastic actor. I've always liked him and everything I've seen him. Going back to first thing I think I remember him in is Get Out. He had kind of a
I still need to see that.
There. Yeah. So good stuff. All right. Let's jump into my number 5. My number 5 is from 2019, and it is Klaus, the Christmas film about Santa and a mailman named Jesper. It's a really fun, heartwarming family animated film. 2D animated. It kind of blends, I
Mm.
think, some 2D and certain CG elements as well. It's got a very unique animation style
Mm.
that I really, really enjoy. It just, sets itself apart just from the visuals, but great use of color, great use of just the way the characters are designed, the way the world is designed. It very much stands out and is memorable. It's a story that's really interesting because the lead character is very selfish. It kind of reminds me a little of Emperor's New Groove a little bit. Like he's a very
Mm.
selfish, kind of self-absorbed character, and he's kind of sent out into the wilderness to kind of help this small town of these kind of warring factions in this small town. And it ends up becoming a very kind of inspirational tale of friendship
Mm.
and kindness and hope and all these great things. The voice cast is fantastic. Jason Schwartzman playing the lead role. You have J.K. Simmons as the titular
Oh.
character here, who has very few lines, but does a great job with all of them. And then supporting characters like Joan Cusack plays a character. She does a great job. And Norm Macdonald, I think he's one of the funniest guys who ever lived. He's really, really funny in this too. Has a great score, very kind of stirring emotionally, yet kind of very kind of just fun throughout to listen to. This was a directorial debut of
Oh,
a
wow.
director by the name of Sergio Pablos, and he did a great job telling the story. You can tell he put a lot of time and effort into it. He's very passionate
Mm.
about it. And so yeah, this is one that has actually, since it debuted in 2019, has been watched every year in our house. It's one that is our
Nice.
favorites. We really, really enjoy it. So every year around Christmas time, we watch this, and it never disappoints. So that had
Mm.
to make the list, and it ended up at number 5.
I ashamedly have not seen that yet. Every
Oh,
single
really?
year, it's like right up there among the
Yeah,
top of my Christmas, holiday watch list. And
right.
every year I don't watch it. I don't know why. I feel like it's like even during Halloween with like monster movies, like I feel less um inspired isn't the right word, but I feel I'm less enthused to watch certain
Right.
movies if I feel like I'm supposed to.
Yeah, I hear you.
So like, it's Christmas time. I'm supposed to watch this. So now I feel like disinclined, even though
Right.
like everybody's talking about it, that like it's a good movie and 2D animated, like you said, like all
Mhm.
these good things about it. So I need to make it a priority this year.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I'll annoy you about it until you watch it. Now that I know
Okay.
you haven't seen
That works. That works.
it. All right. Well, that was my number 5. Josh, what do you got at number 4?
So number 4, this one was another one that was moving around. I think my top 2 are the only ones that didn't move. So number 4, I have a 2018 film. I think it's probably a little underrated, called Set It Up. And it's basically about 2 extremely overworked assistants trying to hook up their very deplorable bosses with each other so they can actually have free time and not be working after midnight every night.
Oh, you talked about this on the Romcoms podcast, I think.
Oh, did I?
Yeah,
Oops, I was trying not to duplicate. Oh,
that's
well.
fine. No, remind me.
Okay, so yeah, like this is, it's kind of a mixed bag, but like a heartwarming mixed bag. Like, is that a thing? I don't know.
Sure.
That's what kind of like, where it's like, should I include this? I don't know, but I do really like it for the heartwarming elements. But yeah, both of the bosses, Lucy Liu is one, and Taye Diggs is the other, and they are just horrible people in this movie. Like, you should quit your job if you are working for people like this, please. But on the other side, on the good side of the film, you have Glenn Powell, and I'm going to butcher her last name, but Zoe Deutch from the Outfit is where I first saw her in. They are both excellent. I mean, everyone does a good job here, but they have the more difficult roles of not being awful people or babies or what have you. And their chemistry, both of their characters are unique, and I really like not only them individually, but how they work together, or how they interact with each other. They play off each other. And yeah, this is definitely not a family friendly film. There's a lot of I don't think they show anything, but there's a lot of references and anatomical body part references or sexual references. Right. But with that being said, I just really liked the the relational aspect between the two of them and just their story, not necessarily the boss's side, because again, they're awful people, and it like that's like the tug of war. You got like that horrible side of the movie that you're just like dread, like it's a drudge to get through any scene that the bosses are in because they're so awful. And then you got like the heartwarming side with Glenn and Zoe, and it just, I don't know. It's just like the movie ends, and not only is it funny, but the movie ends, and I just got a smile on my face. So
Yeah.
I like movies like that where you're at the end of it, you're like, I like that. You just turn to whoever you're watching with, or yourself if you're not watching it with anyone, and you're smiling. You're like, that was good. I like it. So that's why I got it up there at number 4.
Yeah, that's on my watch list. I still haven't checked it out yet, but I'm sure the wife and I will enjoy it. So it's definitely on our watch list to be watched. All righty, now we're moving on to my number 4, a film that has already been brought up that I've got on in the background right now. It is Space Sweepers. Space Sweepers from 2021. This is a Korean film by a director named Jo Sung-hee, and it's just such a fun sci-fi adventure. It's one of these movies that I can watch anytime. You know, it's one of those that I've actually rewatched. Very few of these I've rewatched. I very rarely go to Netflix to rewatch a movie. You know, it's like I'm usually looking for what's new, or they have some old movie that I want to watch or something like that. But this one is one that I've watched a couple of times, and I always get a kick out of it. It's just has a great tone. You know, it's very consistent tone. It's very light. It's not, you know, a lot of heavy drama. There's some drama in it. There's some, you know, character dynamics that are interesting and things like that. But all in all, it's just a really entertaining piece. It's got great world building in it. You know, it's kind of, they set up the world very well of this future society, what's going on here and how these people make a living and all this stuff. It's really well done. It feels to me, and I haven't watched a ton of anime, but it feels kind of like a live action version of Japanese animation. You know, it's kind of that kind of vibe to it. The characters are all very larger than life, you know, from their designs to, you know, just what their interactions are like and how they're kind of behaving around each other. It doesn't take it too far though. It doesn't become like kind of like a parody or something silly, too silly. It's still something that you can grab onto emotionally and engage with. Great cast. You know, the cast is really, to me, what makes this movie so rewatchable, is because their interactions are great. The characters are all just so much fun to listen to, and the dialogue is really well written. It feels very kind of natural. And they have all of great backstories too. They kind of get into the backstories. There's some flashbacks here that are interesting. Really good special effects for a fairly what I think is a pretty low budget movie. I think I looked it up and it was it's only 21 million. So, you know, compared to these, it sounds like a lot, but really, I mean, you think about, I mean, every big Marvel movie is at least 200 million, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy, these budgets, how big they've gotten for some of these films. But yeah, this one's a meager 20. I mean, it's basically like an indie movie nowadays. So
that's true. I mean, and Gareth Edwards is the creator, was 80, and that was like a shocker. So the fact that this is like, that actually gives me kind of some perspective. So 21 million is like nothing.
Right. It's
like, crazy. I don't even, that's what they accomplished is crazy with that amount of money.
Is. Yeah. You can just tell they put the time and effort into it, and they did a great job with all the effects. All the sets look great. It just has a cool visual style to it. It's very much a lived-in universe. You know, they talk about Star Wars is kind of like that. Like everything feels kind of dirty and grimy, and this has that kind of same kind of feel. It's a very accessible foreign film. I feel like a lot of foreign films kind of turn people off because culturally it's just a little awkward. Like some comedy doesn't quite land sometimes, or the certain way people interact, or just the acting style of different you know, countries is different. But this one, I feel, or just like
subtitles.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Some people just can't stand the subtitles or whatever. But this one I feel like is very accessible, and just, you know, the characterization and the style and the way it's shot and everything. Really good cinematography too. I really like the whole you know, lighting and the camera setups and everything. I think is really, really good. So yeah, this is again one of the few that I've rewatched a couple times. and always get a kick out of. And so yeah, it had to make the list. It ended up at number 4. I thought initially it was going to be a little bit higher, but those top 3, they were pretty much locked in as soon as I had the list put together. And so yeah, ended up at number 4.
Yeah, speaking of rewatching films, that's actually a good point I didn't think about. Like most of these, like it was kind of funny because when we first talked about doing this, like my very first thing was rewatch these of my list so I can re-rank them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's a very good point. But yeah, I have not rewatched this one yet,
Okay.
And I need to, because, like you said, it is such a fun movie. And I know every time we mention it, I always say it, but I'm still going to say it because it's true. That it reminds me of Serenity and Firefly. Definitely. In the way that it's like a kind of like a crew, but they're kind of like a family, and they're like on a ship, and they're all like working together.
Yes.
And there's just that camaraderie, that level of camaraderie, and it's also a sci-fi film. So I just think it really has that vibe going for it. And also, like what you said, it's funny and the characters are interesting. Like the special effects, like the fact that you said it's 21 million, and now I can kind of wrap my head around that. Like that just blows my mind, because like I would never have, like, I mean, you kind of know it's kind of an indie film ish, but not in any like oh my, that didn't look realistic, or not in any like glaring way. You just kind of get that sense. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, not in any bad way. And just the characters are all individually fun, like you talked about. Like they all have their own, like they're fully fleshed out. They're all round characters. They're not like flat characters that you don't really get attached to. Like like the robot, I think his name was Bubs. Like he's one of the ones that sticks out in my mind most, because it's just like such a unique and interesting character. And yeah, it's a really, I don't know if I want to say like unique sci-fi film, like it is, but like they just do things that aren't stereotypical of sci-fi films. And it's not like, I don't know, like sometimes in sci-fi films you get like, oh, there was like this thing that they did that was, I've never seen in a sci-fi film before, and then this thing that they did later, and they're like just like individual set pieces like throughout the whole length of the movie, but there's only a couple of them. Kind of like Ad Astra was like that. But I feel like in this one, like just the whole sensibility of the film itself is just kind of like this, I feel like unique is too strong a word, but like a different take on just like the way, like what you said with the world building, like the way the world works. They explain it really well. And it's just like an interesting thing to engage with, to watch.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I would say that it is quite different from most films in the genre, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of sci-fi movies nowadays lean more serious and more dramatic for whatever reason, whereas this one took a much lighter approach and just gave us something a bit different. I think also the ensemble cast, and like you're saying, the sense of family, the film very much is about surrogate family, and they kind of butt heads a lot, but they're typically working together towards the same goal. So yeah, that's all those elements make this film special, I think.
And something like that could combine and make a movie that doesn't work, but that's not the case here. Like I mean, I don't know how, I'm not a filmmaker, but they make it work. I don't know how they did it, but they make it work. Definitely. They pulled it off.
Yep, I agree. Okay, Josh, we're on to your number 3. What do you got?
All right, so again, with things moving around, this was at number 5. So I was trying to squeeze it in there because I really like it. And then, like, as I was looking at things, I was like, you know what? It's number 3. It's a number 3 film. Okay. So I've got The Sea Beast at number 3.
Oh, awesome.
I just watched this like for the first time, I think last month, a couple weeks ago, and it just blew me away. Blew me out of the water.
Good fun. Yeah, I remember when you watched it, you messaged me.
And
I know you're a big fan.
As soon as I messaged you, I was like, okay, wait. I was literally about to just say like everything, like go into the whole. I was like about to like go into it, and then I was like, wait, no. I'm going to use this on the podcast. I don't want to say it now. I won't tell him now. I'll tell him later. So to that end,
yes.
I mean, first off, the first thing you see is just the animation. When I first, I think you had mentioned this film to me because you saw it and said it was good. Like we're right around the time when it came out, or at least definitely before I did. And I think, I don't know, I watched the trailer, but I slept on it until now, which was a mistake. But I think it was just the simplification, the simplified animation of the red bluster, the main creature in the film. When it's when you're not close to it, it kind of looks, it's kind of oddly juxtaposed to the rest of the film. Like it's like the rest of the film is definitely not simple animation or like overly smooth animation, but that creature kind of does. And I think because it was like a big part of the trailer that it kind of like turned me off. Like I don't agree that an anime film equals a kid's film. But there's definitely those that is true for, where there's like, oh, well, they didn't spend a ton of time on the animation here. And I thought that's what this was. So I just didn't really, I didn't go for it. I didn't watch it, but I'm here to say that I was definitely wrong. It is not like a film that is made entirely for 3-year-olds.
Right.
Or solely for 3-year-olds at all. It's like right up there with any good Disney film or DreamWorks film. And to be honest, this is probably the best animation I've seen in a film, as far as like if you're going for the more realistic aspect and not something like the Spider-Verse films. But I would put it right up there with those as far as like in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem that came out this year for like animation quality in general. Like not only just what you're seeing, like the hair and the clothes and everything, but the water is what blew me away. Because water and clothes are like the hardest things to animate in film, which, they make it look easy. They make it look like, and there's so much water in the film,
right?
And they make it look like, oh yeah, we pulled something together. Like they make it look like it was no problem.
Right.
And it's probably the best animated water I've ever seen. Yeah, the animation was just absolutely blew me away. Like I didn't want to look. I was like at one point I think I was eating at the time when I was watching it, and I like was done and was gonna like put my plate away, but I didn't want to like look away from the screen because I was like, I'm gonna miss something like beautiful, because like all of it is just so eye grabbing. Yeah. It's just astounding how much they did to it. But just right from the beginning of the film, it drew me in. You start with Maisie telling the story of the hunters, the monster hunters. And like you learn some about who she is, and then like goes right from there, like kind of like building up this anticipation of lore right into the scene introing the hunters. And it's like, take everything you love about Pirates of the Caribbean and like it's this 5-minute sequence or however long it is. I was just like, I think I had a smile on my face the entire sequence. It was just so much fun to watch. And like all these piratey commands going back and forth, and everyone's like going around and doing all this stuff. And it was just like so cool. From the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then the characters themselves, not only that you see in that sequence, but throughout the whole film, are a really, really strong point in this movie. All of them individually. It's kind of like what we were saying with Space Sweepers. Like they all stand alone as their own characters, and then they just all coexist in this universe together. So it's just like really cool.
Right.
I don't know. I just love all the characters, but some of the ones I especially really liked, obviously, is like Captain Crow and Jacob and Maisie. I think they're definitely they're definitely the main characters, and I think they all did like every aspect of their character, even the voice acting. Like I didn't know who voiced any of these people, as I was like, I think Jacob. I was like, oh, that kind of sounds familiar, but I didn't know it was Carl Urban until after. Yeah. But as you're watching it, I'm just like, okay, whoever's voicing Captain Crow, like, this is great. And then it's Jared Harris. And like, I've never seen a bad film that he's done. He is an underrated actor. He is phenomenal. And he's also a great voice actor, as you can see in this movie.
Son of Dumbledore.
Son of Dumbledore?
Yeah, he's Richard Harris's son. Richard Harris, who played Dumbledore in the first
two
Harry Potters. Yeah.
I never made that connection. That's so cool.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, great wow.
Acting. Great acting was in the genes.
Yeah, runs in the family. Oh my gosh. But yeah, he definitely needs to be in more stuff. I mean, I'm surprised at some of the stuff I've seen him in. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I think of him as more of like a A-list high caliber actor that I'm like, wait, he did a TV show? He was in a TV show? Like, how'd they get him to do that? But yeah, he did an excellent job. Obviously, Carl Urban as the co-main character, Jacob, did a great job. And then I don't think did I write down her name? Zaris Angel Hader, if I pronounce that right, was Maisie. And oh my gosh, her character is so much fun. Just like from the moment you meet her, like her banter with everyone she interacts with, but especially Jacob. is just so much fun to watch, and also like the heart of the film. Like I heard a couple of people saying like, "Oh, this film is like Pirates of the Caribbean. It's like How to Train Your Dragon, or it's like Moana." And yeah, I think there's some overlap there, but I think it's fine because like they took the best parts of those films and then made their own thing with it. They made it work in its own way, in their own universe and stuff, and a universe that has a really cool like world building too. But to the heart of the film is really Maisie's character and like the interaction with creatures and learning that, you know, spoilers, learning that they're not monsters and everything's not as it seems. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a really fun film, and even some of the minor characters stand out just as like really cool. Like Miss Marino, who's the redhead just barking orders. She's kind of like the first assistant director to Captain Crow, just relaying all the orders. And I'm like, that's cool. Yeah. And just the way I think even like the lore scene in the beginning where Maisie's talking about the hunters, and like just that setup provides like a way to facilitate like Sarah Sharp, first mate Sarah Sharp. Like she's a really cool character, and you just have respect for her. And then like I think that is comes through as well with like that you kind of do because Maisie does, and like with the book and the lore and everything, and the way the hunters are. And so like you just kind of like see it through her eyes of she's in awe at all this stuff in that world. I don't know, it just makes for some really cool characters and really cool interactions. So yeah. Oh, and one last thing, the score. The score is really good, as well as the Captain Crow sea shanty. That's it's so much fun. But Mark Mancina, if I pronounce that right, he did the score. I didn't know who he was. I thought I just thought, I was like, oh, I haven't seen his name before. He must be up and coming. No, I mean, maybe he's up and coming if he's doing more stuff, but no, he's been around quite a while. He's done very many famous scores, yes. But I didn't realize he did Tarzan and Moana. Now that I recognize his name, kind of like looking for a certain kind of car and I see it everywhere. Right. Now I'm seeing his name everywhere. I was like, I didn't know he did all that, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, it's a great one. It's one that I've watched a couple times and always get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It does, like you said, it does combine all these different elements from different movies we've seen before, but in I feel like in a new package, in a way. It's like, yeah, like you said, the kind of lore that they build, the history that's there. I think all of that really, really helps to make it stand out. The characters and their interactions, like you said, the voice acting is great. It just has a great look to it. It's just vibrant, and full of life, every frame of the movie. Yes. And really, really has good pacing too.
That's true.
You never feel like there's a dull moment. There's always something new and exciting going on. And the characters, the journey they go on together is what makes the film worth watching, I feel like, because they each have character arcs that are compelling. So it's That's definitely one that I've watched a couple times and continue to enjoy. Like you said, I feel like I'm a huge fan of movies like this, just like high seas adventure, going back to the old Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, obviously the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. There's so many great movies like this, the Seahawk and Captain Blood, like really old movies that I'm big into, that this kind of pays homage to in certain ways. So big fan of this one. Karl Urban, one of my favorite actors, honestly. Everything I've ever seen him in, he's great.
That's true.
No exception. So big fan of Sea Beast. Changing tones drastically now. my number three pick is not a family-oriented adventure movie with lots of fun and fun songs. It is the 2022 World War I film, All Quiet on the Western Front. This is, for my money, one of the greatest war films ever made. It was one of my favorite films of last year. I was just kind of blown away by it, honestly. It's so unique because it's the German perspective on the war. And what I really like about this is that Felix Kramer, who plays our lead character here, we get to see him at the beginning of the film when the war is just beginning and he's signing up. And you kind of see, and throughout the film, the film kind of is about propaganda in a way, and how people can very easily be persuaded one way or another. They kind of have blind loyalty to their government or to an organization or whatever. And they can be used as pawns in these much larger kind of conflicts. And we get a sense of that also because the film is going back and forth between the soldiers on the ground who you're with most of the time, but we're also seeing the commanding officers kind of in their, high castles, drawing up all the plans and, doing all these things to these young men who are just kind of ignorant to the fact that they're being used in this way. So very interesting film about war, about the nature of war and the nature of man. It's very brutal, very barbaric. Some of the things that you see here just kind of devastating. Certain sequences will really stay with you. So it's very tragic storytelling in that sense. But there's also the other side of it, which is you really get to see the camaraderie that these soldiers have with one another and the relationships that develop and the love that they have for one another. I mean, it's really powerful. So this movie does just a great job showcasing the First World War, which are not a ton of World War I movies. Most of them are World War II movies. So showing a war that was the last war that they used horses in, the trench warfare. I mean, just all kinds of unique things that you're seeing on screen, and their interaction with civilians they'll run into. Because I mean, this war was fought, all across Europe, so it wasn't just like on certain battlefields. It would be like in cities, like where people are living their lives. So you get to see that element of it. It's really, really well done, though. Great musical score. The highlight here for me is the cinematography. It's visual storytelling at its finest. I mean, the whole film's in German. It was all made in Germany by German people, and it really, you don't need even the subtitles on to know what's going on. It's very clear from what you're seeing on screen what these characters are going through and what's happening. So yeah, all in all, it just is a movie that had a very big impact on me when I watched it for the first time. And I haven't watched it since because, like I said, it is not an easy watch, but it's one that I can't recommend enough to people to watch at least once, because the historical element of it, as they say, history repeats itself. And fortunately, we haven't had a global conflict like this since World War II, obviously, but war is a harsh reality across our planet constantly. And so this film and films like it, I think, are important to watch and to be reminded of how devastating it really is when we kill each other like this in mass for borders or for just the kind of silly reasons, honestly. So definitely worth at least one watch, but one that I've watched and it's stayed with me, and it's just technically so well made that I can't recommend it enough. So I know you got to see this last year as well, right?
I for my part, I need to rewatch it just because I don't know. I feel like I didn't like it as much. Well, I didn't like it as much as you did, but or to the level. I didn't like it to the same level that you did.
Right.
Probably a better way to say that. But so for me, I watched one of the behind the scenes things too. So I just want to revisit it with a different frame of mind than I went to it before, with a little bit more respect for the film and what they accomplished.
Sure.
Not that it was it's a foreign film, it's all in German. No, that was a boon. To the respect for it, because the last one, the original, the famous one, is all in English,
right?
And so the fact is it just makes sense. Why this is from the German perspective, why would you not do it in the German language?
Right.
So I definitely need to go back into this one. I think it may have been the score, I don't know, turned me off or maybe not like it as much, because it is certain parts of it are kind of modern, right. Or at least have a modern sensibility to it with or modern instrument. And so it kind of threw me, I think, a little bit, but now that I know that, I think going into it this time, I can account for that. And actually, I kind of, now that you say that about that you don't necessarily need the subtitles, I kind of want to go into it without subtitles and just take it, because you're right. As you were saying that, I was thinking back over it and I was Yeah, there is. It is very very accomplished at just visual storytelling, and you can figure out, like, you probably don't need to hear any much of the dialogue when they're not just like sitting somewhere and talking,
Right.
in order to understand what's going on. But one thing that I didn't think about that I really liked, well, actually two things that you mentioned I didn't think about, was the propaganda, and like especially at the end. That's such a, like with, you know, with what one of the generals does is just like it, exactly to your point about that, and that's really really sad part of the film. But on the flip side of that, what you're talking about with like the characters and like the bond that they create, that's like the highlight of the film. As far as like a happier takeaway, I guess,
Sure.
is like, and I didn't think about it either, but you do see that like throughout the film, it like builds, and then like as like some of them like get separated from each other, and then maybe they'll find each other later or something like that. Like it's really cool interactions, and especially, I don't remember their names, but the main two, or like the main kid, and then like the one that was kind of like mentoring him, the older guy. Like their individual stories, both together and separate, are really powerful as well. So it's definitely a war film I need to revisit.
Yeah, for sure. It was nominated for 9 Academy Awards last
Mm.
year, which is might be a record for a Netflix film. I'm not sure, but
For a
the
war film.
yeah, yeah, it included Best Picture. It ended up winning Best International Feature, Best
That's right.
Cinematography, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design. So it ended up
Mm.
racking up 4 Academy Awards, which is pretty spectacular. So yeah,
It
again,
definitely
definitely,
deserves those.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't.
Yeah.
Okay, Josh, we're up to your number 2.
Yes.
What do you got?
So actually, I just thought of this. I would say this is another, the All Quiet on the Western Front is another movie I appreciate more than like, at least right now. So I definitely
Yeah,
need to rewatch it.
gotcha.
Um, but for my number two, and these are probably the only two films, number two and number one, that didn't move the entire time. So number two, I have Tick Tick Boom, the
Mm,
Lin-Manuel Miranda directorial debut, starring Andrew Garfield. This film's just phenomenal. Yeah, Andrew Garfield just knocks it out of the park. I already liked him, but I think this film, kind of like The Harder They Fall, kind of like brought Jonathan Majors to my attention. I feel like in a similar way, this film brought Andrew Garfield to my attention, as like solidifying him as one of my favorite actors.
mm,
Because I already, especially from like Hacksaw Ridge, like, you know, he
uh-huh,
did amazing in that.
right.
But even in this, I think that kind of solidified it. But the first time I watched it, everyone else was already asleep. It was like midnight by the time I finished it. But like as soon as like the title comes up at the end and the movie's over, like I literally just wanted to start clapping. And I was sitting there by myself in the dark, just me, not in a theater.
Yeah,
And I was like, I wanted to applaud this movie.
yeah,
So that's like just a testament right there to how good this movie is. I don't think I've ever had that reaction, like if it wasn't in like a theater or something, like on opening nights where you're more inclined to do that.
right.
If the movie's good enough. Yeah, I also didn't realize that it's a show that Larson wrote himself, that Jonathan Larson wrote. Because like I knew Lin-Manuel Miranda was directing it.
Mhm.
I thought it was just a story about his life, which it is, but I didn't realize that he had written a musical that was a story about his life. So like
Right.
all these songs, and then I see his name in the credits on all these songs. I'm like,
Yeah.
did they use like he wrote just all these songs and they tied them perfectly in the movie? And so
Right.
that's what I thought initially, before realizing no, he wrote a musical about his
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But
Incredible.
Lin-Manuel Miranda did a great job. Now I don't know. I guess I heard some people saying like, oh, it's mostly like he's using other people's content, like a play. Like, how is he going to direct his own thing? That's more his own thing. But whatever, he did a great job.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't wait to see his next directing piece. I knew almost nothing about Jonathan Larson except that he made Rent. He did
Right.
the musical Rent, and that
Mhm.
he died, unfortunately,
Right.
tragically. But I didn't know anything about this. So as I'm watching it, first of all, you're learning, but second of all, the part where he's talking about a space opera, I was like, this sounds really cool. Why have they not made this yet? And I was really hoping that this movie coming out would like be the push enough to get them to actually do it. And so
Right.
I don't think they have, not that I've heard anyway. but I really want them to do that.
Yeah.
But just more about the movie itself. The synopsis has a line that says, "The the pressure to create something before time runs out, to create something great before time runs out." That is the main through line, I think, through the film. You know, because he's like he's about to turn 30, and I think this is the same thing for you too. But I was 29 at the time, and so like when I first saw it, and it's just like, yeah, it's kind of like that time of your life where you're like, what's my output, what am I gonna give back to the world, or what's my legacy gonna be?
Yeah.
And not necessarily legacy, that's probably not the right word, but like, what am I gonna accomplish in my life? And that's directly what this film is dealing with. I really liked the songwriting, his songwriting. I haven't seen Rent. This is the only thing I've seen of his or heard of his. But I just really like the unique, like fresh style that he gives to his songwriting. Like even some of like the way the song like shifts in the middle of the song, right. Like 3090 does that, and No More does that. When they start like almost like when he references something, like when in 3090 they're talking about like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, and like the whole song shifts musically as well. Right. And I don't know, it's just really cool and interesting. Like I don't know if any of these songs will ever live on to be like among the classics, but they're distinct from the classics, and that they are so unique and fresh and interesting, both lyrically and musically. Right. And so they're just really fun. I don't know, and everyone does a great job acting, and I don't know, it's just a really it's the story, the music, the acting, like it fires on all cylinders, and just it's really compelling.
I totally agree. This is my number 2 as well. So
I'll jump
right in. Yeah, I'll jump right in. Yeah, very personal for me. Like you said, I turned 30 right around the time the movie was released.
Oh,
and
okay.
So yeah, it was definitely interesting to watch it. You know, it just kind of hit home for me in several ways. Lin-Manuel Miranda is so talented as a lyricist, musician, and a director, apparently, because I really think he does a great job directing the film with both the visual style, what he's doing with the camera, the way the actors are interacting with the sets. There's a particular musical number where the sets are kind of changing, and dance choreography going on here. I mean, there's a lot he's handling. And of course, primarily, you know, the director's job is to not just make sure there's enough visual information, but to direct the actors and their performances. And like you said, Andrew Garfield, I agree. I think this is his best performance I think maybe he's ever given. And so, you know, to take a great actor who's been in so many great movies, delivered so many great performances, and give him this kind of role where he can showcase his singing and ability, and you know, all as well as his dramatic side, and all of it. I mean, it just really kind of blew me away. Alexandra Shipp I wanted to mention as well. She does an excellent job here. The entire cast, really, they all are just very convincing in their roles, very believable, feels very real, as it should, because it's based on a true story. Very meticulously planned out. You can tell, like, just certain camera moves and even edits are very well done.
Like when we move from him on the piano to him in real life, so to speak, or at the time.
Yes, all of that is just really smart and clever. The way they did all that, it kind of just stands out in your mind. Not, you know, and this is a unique situation because it's a biopic and a musical. So it's just very different. Sometimes it's a musical because he's just performing on a stage. Other times he's just living his life and he breaks into song. So it has all those different kind of elements to it that just make it feel very different from any kind of musical or biopic that I've ever seen. So really liked all that. Of course, Lin did this movie because Jonathan Larson was his inspiration to become a musical theater guy. He saw Rent when he was really young. Cool. And that's what made him want to do this. So he's been passionate about this film for a long time, well before he even made Hamilton. He wanted to do this. So this just came along at the right time. It all came together, and I'm so glad that we have this film because, yeah, very emotionally impactful. Like you said, it is a lot about, you know, legacy, what you'll leave behind, what, you know, you're going to do with your life, what kind of impact you're going to have on the world. And those are very important things to think about, especially as you get older. And yeah, definitely a film. This is another one I have rewatched several times. I've got many of the songs memorized. I've listened to them many times before, and really enjoy
so good.
it. So,
do you have a favorite song or favorite songs?
3090, to me, the way the film starts with that 3090 song,
so good,
was just so interesting and different, and just drew me right in. Made me like the character, made me just jump right into the story feet first. And as I was turning 30, that song was constantly playing because I was turning 30, and that was like what the song was all about. So pretty neat. All right, folks. Well, this is it. We've come to our number one picks, our favorite Netflix movies. So kicking us off is Josh. What do you got, man?
So for number one, I have to put The Adam Project.
Oh, okay, great.
And I feel like this lands a few different ways for people, or like maybe one of two ways for people. Like either like they it's like, yes, 100%, or it's like, it was okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm in the like, yes, 100% camp, obviously, if it's my number one pick. Sure. But I know I say this every single chance I get for all the movies that it applies to, but I'm still going to say it again. Any movies that have like a really strong relational aspect, like the X-Men films do a great job of this, especially the prequels, between characters, and especially even more so if it's familial relationships. And I think this film hits on every single aspect except like a sibling relationship. And maybe you can say that technically with Ryan Reynolds and Walker Scobell's character. I guess you can kind of say it's like a sibling-esque relationship. Even though, spoiler, they're the same person. But that's what really just drives us home. Like anytime I'm like wavering on, like thinking about the movie, I'm like, I don't know, do I really like it as much as I thought I did the first time I watched it? And then like all of those, like throughout the whole film, it's throughout the whole film. Like the first interaction with Ryan Reynolds talking to Jennifer Gardner as his mom, but she doesn't know it's him. And just that whole interaction there at the beginning of the film. And then you have him and his wife, Zoe Saldana, in the middle of the film, and that really strong emotional relationship and those scenes. And then at the end of the film, both Ryan and Walker talking to their dad, played by Mark Ruffalo, also a great cast, by the way. But and just those emotional scenes, like it's throughout the whole movie, and all of them are just like super solid hits that just like right in the heart. And it's like, yes, like if not the first, by the second one, I'm like, yep, this still best one. That's top of the Netflix list. So those are why 100% it is number one for me. But in addition to that, I already mentioned the cast. Walker Scobell does a great job being like a young Ryan Reynolds. There's some like behind the scenes stuff you can watch if you haven't. I'm sure you've already seen it though, where they're kind of like talking about like screen testing or interacting with him, and like Walker Scobell was like Ryan Reynolds' biggest fan, and like just melded right into like copying mannerisms and stuff like that. And they both do a great job playing off each other as well. But also the action is really good. Like it's a sci-fi film, so there's really good action and unique, I guess sort of unique tools. Like it's not a lightsaber, but it kind of is, but it works in a different way. And it's still like cool and unique in its own right. So different sci-fi tech like that. I liked the concept that they use of time travel. Like nothing changes until you go back to your timeline, unless of course you kill your younger self. But I liked that, like, it rewrites itself and fixes itself once everything's back where it's supposed to be. I liked that aspect. And then like the story itself isn't anything necessarily to be like, oh my gosh, like give it an award for the screenwriting of the story part of it, the plot. But I think that's okay, because I feel like this is a very character driven movie. Like the whole reason that the beginning of the movie happens, like with Adam, Ryan Reynolds, Adam, I'll just use their names because otherwise it'll be Adam and Adam. Anyway, Ryan Reynolds is going back into the past is to find his wife. And so that's not a plot, that's a character driven. And up until he finds his wife, that's the whole driving point of that. And then they realize there's something else and they need to go find their dad. And so it, like, I don't know, there's just so many beats here that are all very character driven. I think I like character and plot driven movies like equally, but I feel like I like more character driven film, or I feel like character driven films often stand out more to me, like in my mind. They'll have a place there where I'll like think fondly of them more often maybe than your plot driven film. But they can both be done equally well. But I guess the other thing I'll mention is the score that Rob Simonson did, and I've only seen I think a couple of films that he's done the score for, or that I've kind of paid attention to the score for. But he did the score for Gifted with Chris Evans and McKenna Grace, and The Way Back came out a couple years ago with Ben Affleck. And especially for The Way Back, because I've listened to that score a few times. It's a very contemplative, somber score, which works really well for the movie that it's in. But I think he was a perfect pick for this movie because, and like, it doesn't have to be like John Williams level action scoring, you know, for that, especially because that's not necessarily like, the movie's not trying to do that. But like on the really familial and relational aspects, you have that score undergirding it of that somberness, and that it just really grounds those scenes. It helps really ground those scenes, I think, and make them it just like grounds and uplifts them. but you know what I mean. And it kind of gives it like a sturdier foundation, and then elevates what the scene is accomplishing. So I think he was a really good pick for that. And it's mainly just that all those emotional beats between all the family members that really is why this movie, I don't know, I just continue to love it.
Yeah. I remember when it came out and checking it out. I'm not quite as high on it as you are. I did have a good time watching it. Like you're saying, I think it is a little bit derivative of other things. And it's not quite it didn't quite grab me as much as I think it grabbed you. Not sure why. I think it's well made. I think I like Sean Levy as a director. Night at the Museum, Real Steel is one of my favorites. And
he's got Deadpool and All the Light We Cannot See. He's doing both of those films.
That's right.
Both big films.
And he's working on a Star Wars movie.
Wait, he is?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's working on.
Wow.
Over at Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy hired him on to make a film. We don't know anything about it at this point, but he's going to make a Star Wars movie, and I think this was kind of a testing ground for it. You know, he's got the lightsabers and the whole thing. So, he very much harkens back to Amblin, kind of 80s Spielberg type filmmaking for me. It's never as good as Spielberg, right? But he does show that he has what it takes to get there. I think eventually he can get there, and this is a step in the right direction. I do enjoy the movie. Scobell, I mean, that kid, he is a dead ringer for Ryan Reynolds. It is kind of crazy, like how well he does Ryan Reynolds in this movie. I mean, the mannerisms, like you were saying, just his vocal patterns, like it's really next level acting, honestly.
For and the quippiness.
Kid. Yeah. It's like the attitude is there. It's everything. It's really impressive. So he did a great job. You know, Ryan Reynolds is kind of just doing his Ryan Reynolds thing, you know, which I'm kind of getting tired of, honestly. So that may be part of a reason why I'm not as high on it as I could be.
And he's kind of a jerk in this one.
Yeah, he is.
Well, he's a jerk to younger Adam.
To himself, which is kind of weird. I don't know. Didn't really sit right with me because it was a kid, but it was him, so it kind of is okay, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
That was that was like the main thing I didn't like about that. If I could say something I didn't like about the movie, that would be it, that he was like a little too much of a jerk to himself.
Right. But yeah, Zoe Saldana is, wonderful as always, and Mark Ruffalo is kind of the heart of the movie, I feel like, in many ways. Yeah. Like his character is just so likable. He's just such a likable actor. And all those emotional moments at the end especially do work for me. So it's a movie I enjoyed. It's not one I've revisited. I'd kind of like to revisit it, actually, to see, if I would like it more maybe on a second watch. But yeah, glad you had it at number one. It's definitely worth a watch. All right, folks, we have come down to my number one Netflix movie. It is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Nice.
This film came out just last year, and man, what a beautiful film. I mean, just
Mm.
everything about it, the story, the look of it, you know, it's one of these meticulously handcrafted stop motion animated movies. It's just
Oh
blows
my
me away
gosh.
every time I think about how much time and effort goes into a movie like this. I mean, you're having to
Mm.
hand make all these puppets, you know, and make them come to life in a way that really I have never seen before. I mean, I've seen many stop motion films. I like a number of them: Fantastic Mr. Fox, Coraline, Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, there's so many great ones, but this one just, I don't know, there's something special about it. I feel like
Mhm.
there's so much time and effort that went into making these fake things, these just inanimate objects, real characters. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
crazy that they really do
Yeah.
come to life in such a way that makes me just get lost in the story. After a few minutes, I just forget it's stop motion and it's just, you know, me
Mhm.
just watching characters interact. So really well done on the animation side, and all those who, you know, of course have to craft not just the characters but the sets and environments. It's just really mind blowing. Very well shot, very well thought out. Obviously, you have to think out every frame. I mean, really, of you know
It's true.
what how the camera is moving and what direction it's moving in, and choreograph all that with the puppeteers. It's just, yeah, again, very time consuming. It's definitely has to be a passion project if you're working on something like this, because if not, you would just go crazy. I feel like after like the first 2 months, you're like, oh, we've got, you know, 10 seconds of film down. Okay, great.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's kind of insane, but it's so well done. The voice acting, of course,
Mm.
stellar. I mean, we've got Ewan McGregor, one of my favorite actors of all time, narrating as Sebastian J. Cricket, and just does a great job bringing this character to life. Very humorous, yet
Mm.
very wise in other ways. You know, he's just a great character to watch interact with all the other ones. Gregory Mann, I think this is his first movie. He playing Pinocchio,
Mm.
full of life and
Oh
curiosity,
yeah.
which is, you know, central to the character. David Bradley, for me, I think might be the MVP here. I mean, he's doing a great job as Geppetto. He has so many emotions he has to go through.
Mm.
You know, losing his son to, you know, having this kind of new son and going on this adventure to rescue him. And it's really, really incredible what he's able to do with that character. Christoph Waltz, I'm a huge fan of as the dastardly Count Volpe. I mean, he's really, really good in this too. Very
Yeah.
theatrical, big performance. So really like him. We've got tons of other actors. I like Ron Perlman, who's a staple of all of Del Toro's movies. Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things is great in this.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Tilda Swinton, of course, doing a great job. Tim Blake Nelson, I really like. And then Academy Award winner Kate Blanchett as the monkey Spazzatura, which is just something I never thought I would say. It's like she worked
Oh
with
my
him
gosh.
on Nightmare Alley the year before
Oh
this,
yes.
and was like, "You got to put me in your next movie." You know, she just loved working with Del Toro, and he's like, "Okay, I've got one role, but it's a monkey. I mean, you're not gonna have any lines, really." He's like, "I'll do it. I don't care." And it's just great. I mean, she's really able to emote with all these grunts and growls and things she's doing. It's really just kind of amazing to listen to.
Did
Um,
she do the voices of the puppets she's that the monkey's puppeting?
she did. So she did get
Okay.
some lines in there, like actual lines of dialogue in there as well. But yeah, most of it's just grunting and growling. Um, so yeah, they're all great. Speaking of the sound, of course, the sound design is wonderful.
Mm.
They're having to create all these sounds. They can't, you know, it's like with movies, you know, on set, you can like make sounds. They've got mics there and you can like interact with things. But here, every single interaction the character has with something else, they have to create that
Mm.
sound.
It's
And so,
silent.
yeah, it's incredible just to think about that stuff. And then, of course, Alexandra Desplat does the musical
Mm.
score here. All of the songs, you know, it is a musical, so there are characters break out into songs several times throughout. I enjoy all the musical numbers too. So he did a great job with that. He's, I think, won an Academy Award. He's a great composer. So
Mm.
yeah, this film, it's full of passion and creativity. It's just apparent from every frame, I feel like. And so for that reason, and of course, the themes we're dealing with here, there's so many. I mean, there's so much going on because he set it during wartime. So you've got kind of the fascism element to it. You've got that whole story, which is totally original to the Pinocchio's tale. You've got of course, themes of life and death. Life after death is dealt with in a very interesting way here as well. It's a lot about grief. I mean, that's really where the movie starts, and it's about this father-son dynamic. And of course, as the original Pinocchio movie, the Disney one, which is one of my favorite Disney films, it's a lot about the conscience and right and wrong, and that kind of thing. So a lot to unpack in this movie. This is one that you could talk about for a long time if you're just talking about kind of biblical allusions and allegories and things like that. But it's one that stayed with me. It's one that I've watched a couple times, and I can't wait to get the Criterion edition, which is coming out in December. I'll finally be able to add it to the collection, and it's supposed to be packed with all kinds of bonus features and things. And yeah, Del Toro, he's just a guy that has such a specific style that I've always enjoyed his movies. And this is no exception. So yeah, Pinocchio made my number one.
This is a really good one. I feel like for some reason this is a film that it's one I appreciate more than I like, but I don't know why, because I do really like it. And I remember, when I watched the first and only time, again with the not watching rewatching Netflix movies, but like I really liked it. So I don't know. I think it's just like something about it. I don't know. I need to rewatch it. Like after the fact, just kind of dwindled in my mind. I don't really, I can't place it on. I can't say like, oh, it's because of this in the film. Like I have legitimately nothing to pin it on. So I feel like rewatching it, I will rebalance that liking and appreciating levels to what they should be.
Right.
Because like what you said, this is an astounding film, and it does have like a lot of like, to say, I don't know, I feel like saying it fires on all cylinders, or like it does everything well. Like I feel like we say that a lot, or at least I say that a lot, but I mean it. It's true. Yeah. Like, and what you said about it is a testament to that. Like every little aspect is so meticulously well crafted, not only physically but like audibly or story wise, any of that. Some of the things I remember that stand out to me is the Jimmy, or it's not Jimmy, I guess in this one, but or whatever. Ewan McGregor's the cricket. He can't get through his song about his father, and it's so funny. He keeps getting cut off. Like I think at the I think it doesn't even happen in the movie. It's the credit song, isn't it?
Exactly. And the end credits, he finally gets to sing his one song.
And like, and especially like right in the beginning, you're like, it's like, oh, this musical number, and he's about to go into it, and this wisdom, and then like it gets cut off, and it's just like, it's really funny. I really like that part, but also just the creativity, like you said about the fascism and World War I element, but also I really liked pretty much anything that's not like that we think of as a Pinocchio story. Like I really liked the way they did it here. Like I really liked like the whole like afterlife area and the whatever kind of creatures those were. And like Tilda Swinton did a great job with that. And just like that whole the aura, if that's the right word, of all of that, and the tone is just like really cool. And you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? What is this about? And really interesting. But also like the musical numbers are fun. And just like the way they did, the way they styled certain things, like Pinocchio himself and the cricket living in like a notch. Like I don't know, it was just like really cool things like that they did creatively that were really interesting. Like the whole movie is interesting visually. Like I don't think there's a scene that's not something to look at and like and something that we haven't seen before, especially in this medium, to just kind of like absorb. So I don't know. It's definitely a high quality film, and like you said with Del Toro, like I think the film that made me like, okay, what's the next thing he's doing? Was I don't know. It was either Nightmare Alley or it was Hellboy 2. It was one of the two of them.
Yeah.
But it was probably Hellboy 2 because even though I didn't see it when it came out, but I feel like I probably snuck that in before Nightmare Alley. But just like his level of filmmaking. Like the attention to detail, and not only his style, but just his I guess like the practical effects and the like creature effects and the realism, like he just does such a good job with all of that. So it just makes anything you're watching of his just really visually interesting. And then throw his style on top of that. And it's just like, what's he making next? I want to see it. So, and that is definitely the case with this film as well.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, he's one of a kind for sure. All right, folks. Well, that is it for our best Netflix movies list. Let us know your list in the comments below.
Yes.
Make sure you follow us on social media. Josh and I are both on Letterboxd. Is that a Letterboxd shirt, by the way?
Yes. Sorry, I forget every time I wear a shirt that you're only going to see like some of it,
part of it.
But
yeah,
nice. Yeah, there it is, cool. Right there.
Awesome.
It's a bunch of famous items from movies.
Yeah, I've seen that on their website. That's a cool shirt. So yeah, follow us on Letterboxd if you're not there. Then get on there because it's a really cool app that we use often. So make sure you also like the video, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Josh has his own channel. We're going to leave that link in the description below as well. So thanks again, Josh, for joining me. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a really, like you said, with Netflix, like there's such a variety on there. So it's a really interesting discussion to have on each of these totally different types of movies that we included in the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for joining us. Next week on the podcast, we are doing a full Star Wars timeline breakdown. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're not going to want to miss it. Going through all the eras of Star Wars, talking about all of our favorite movies and shows. It's going to be a lot of fun. So join us there. We will see you next time right here on The Real World.